Ultimately, they broke the spell Rita had placed on him and he officially joined the team. It's a really well-written and suspenseful story. They also started the first official romance with him and Kimberly, but I think I'll get into that more in the next segment. Besides for the introduction of Tommy and the Green Ranger and the romance, I'd say the Green with Evil miniseries also developed Jason and Billy. Jason, during a time in the saga, was forced to fight alone and without his ranger powers, and he was able to use his own skills to survive. For Billy, this put him on the path to better understanding the command center's technology, as he assisted in repairing Alpha and their base of operations, which would lend a big hand in his future role on the team during Zeo. Over time, the show settled into its standard format of issue of the day, monster, Zord fight, and finally tawdry resolution of the issue at the end. While they usually are pretty good about their own continuity, there's the occasional bizarre hiccup. For example, there's an episode called Life's a Masquerade, a rather enjoyable standalone episode featuring some great bits by Bulk and Skull, where Rita introduces her super putties, nearly indestructible versions of her old putties. The problem is that the episode right before it, Gung Ho, already introduced the Super Putties, and the group reacts with shock at the premise of the Super Putty both times. Do they have ADD or something? What the hell? Anyway, eventually the show ran into a bit of a problem. See, a lot of the fight scenes were dependent on the Sentai footage, and, well, there was only so much of it, particularly of the Green Ranger and the Dragon Zord. Now, they solved the Green Ranger issue by writing him out of the show. In the two-parter, The Green Candle, Rita unveils a magic candle that, once fully melted, will return the Green Ranger powers to her. Why the hell she never unveiled this until now is a good question, but the point is that Tommy is going to lose his powers. Still, as evil plans go, this is certainly better than her usual rigmarole of trying to ruin the teenager's days by sending putties to cause minor inconveniences. Plus, as Spoonie himself has pointed out, using a candle to take over the world? That's pretty hardcore. The Rangers fought valiantly, and Jason himself tried to stop the candle, but ultimately failed. In order to prevent Rita from getting her hands on the Green Ranger powers, however, Tommy transfers them to Jason, granting him his shield and the Dragon Flute. Jason's failure to stop the Green Candle is something that would haunt him next season, but we'll get to that next time. Writing the Green Ranger out was a brilliant move from a marketing perspective. Tommy was a popular character, and instead of overexposing him, limiting his appearances meant that kids would be more inclined to tune in the hopes of seeing him again, particularly on the episodes that he did come in for. Which brings us to Return of an Old Friend. Rita finally comes up with a plan that's not completely nonsensical and goofy, which is kidnap the teen's parents and ransom them for the power coins. They also take control of Billy's mind and force him to take the Dragon Dagger. This is the first time we actually see their parents, and, in true silly fashion, most of them dress like their kids, with Jason's parents wearing red and Skull's parents wearing punk attire. In fact, strangely enough, Bulk's parents seem the most normal. Goldar offers to return their parents in exchange for their power coins, and they give them up, but of course Goldar doesn't hold up his end of the bargain. However, Jason reveals that he still has the Dragon Coin. They recruit Tommy once again and infuse him with Zordon's own energy. However, they know it's only a temporary measure, and it's likely the powers could give out during a fight. After an intense fight, Tommy's able to retrieve the dagger and the power coins, and while he's now back as the Green Ranger, the group knows that the rejuvenation of his powers is only temporary. Besides for the running subplot of Tommy and Kimberly's relationship, there was also Zack's pursuit of Angela, who would brush him off any time he tried to impress her. It was actually a nice change to see that the teens weren't successful at everything they did, like it seemed to be, though Angela's heart seemed to be won over whenever Zack did genuinely good things for her, or when he bribed her. One particular aspect that occurred to me as I was watching the later episodes of the season was the change in fighting prowess. In the early episodes, the Rangers tended to fight off putties successfully only after they'd morphed. Otherwise, they relied on tricks or misdirection in order to defeat them. In fact, Tommy's ability to fight off a squad of putties single-handedly was an impressive feat to Rita. However, in a later episode, Zack was able to fight off a squad of putties himself, too. Billy's fighting ability in particular would change. In the beginning, he could barely fight off one putty, let alone a whole group of them, but by the end, he was able to hold his own in a fight beyond the stereotypical nature of his character. Mind you, some of this was simply narrative convenience, but it did hang in my mind as I was watching. Originally, the first season of Power Rangers was only supposed to be 40 episodes, ending on Doomsday. However, with the growing popularity of the series, they decided to keep it on, though Saban found itself needing new Sentai footage since they had run out of the footage produced by the original Zyu Ranger show. To solve the problem, they actually contacted the creators of the show to produce entirely new, original footage that would only be used in Power Rangers. Damn! Damn! It amazes me what kind of budget this show must have had. While dubbing a show is by no means a cheap process, it would have been considerably cheaper than continually producing original footage with all these characters, having the new footage made by the original producers, and as we'll see, all new sets and villains made exclusively for this show. The underlying theme present is one of magic, or at least steampunk fantasy, versus technology. While both sides of the conflict utilize magic or technology, their methodology and surroundings are completely on opposite sides. Rita's palace is full of magic trinkets, and its overall atmosphere is meant to evoke a wizard's lair. Her monster-making machine turns clay figures and pops them out as actual living beings. She has a magic wand to make her monsters grow, and she routinely uses magical items to achieve her goals, either calling upon some ancient spirit or, say, using the candle to take away superpowers. Even the monsters themselves tend to have a more mythological or mystical bent to them, or at the very least range on the fantastic. On the other side of the fence are the Power Rangers. The command center is a high-tech facility, and the morphers themselves are an impressive feat of technology, accessing something called the morphing grid to give them their powers. While Zordon may have been described as a wizard before they fleshed out his backstory, he clearly prefers the use of technology that the group had at their disposal. Alpha himself is a robot, and the Rangers use giant machines to fight against Rita's magically created monsters. Billy is usually the tech go-to guy and also invents new devices to help the team out. Hell, his little brother even invents a Virtual Boy. Technology is presented as something extraordinarily necessary and useful to the team and the world at large. Mysticism and magic, while useful sometimes, are presented as tools of evil. What's interesting about this is that by the time we reach Zeo, that position will not only have swung more towards the mystical, but an outright reversal, with technological forces being the enemy, but we'll get to that when we get to it. All in all, the success of the show was probably not built on the most engaging of circumstances. While the acting is mixed in the early episodes, the characters do all eventually grow into a position where they're completely believable in their roles, as long as you ignore them preaching about community this and environmentalism that and teamwork and all that crap. Guest characters would be the worst actors, since it comes off as not knowing if they should take their material seriously. Or in some cases, they're just terrible actors. No, what I'd say really guaranteed the success was the action. No other show at the time was showing such complex fighting and choreography, and while the monsters were silly and the jokes were cheesy, there was something of a basic charm to the series that made people, especially kids, want to watch it. The growth of good storylines aided it, especially multi-parters where the stakes were high and you honestly weren't sure how they were going to resolve the situations. And while there were, of course, those times when logic broke through and you asked, "Say, if Rita knows their identities, why doesn't she just blow up their houses?" All in all, the first season was a good start to the show, even if 60 episodes was a bit much, especially when one considers that most of them followed the same damn formula. However, things would only go uphill in terms of storytelling in Season 2.
Hey guys, you don't even know what you're talking about. We were talking to a giant floating head.